Good morning, Axe fans. A rainy day has got me indoors, checking out a new product. Hults Bruk now makes an axe puck. I got one right here. If you're not familiar with axe pucks, all right, they're kind of a specialized axe sharpening stone, but you can use them on any curved edged tool, right? And they're round like this, very convenient. You can just throw them in your ruck and use them in the field. Great little tool, about all you need probably to maintain an axe, all right? Unless you do a lot of damage to it, need a file or something like that. But they almost always come with two grits on each side of the puck, a coarse grit and a fine grit. And of course the idea here is use the coarse grit to work out, you know, your major damage, your big scuffs, and then you use the fine side to get that sharp edge, all right? So we're gonna take it through its paces and compare it against one of the best axe pucks on the market today and see how it fares. So this right here is an axe puck that's been on the market for several years, and I think it's probably the best axe puck you can get. All right, definitely for the value. It's made by Baronix Axe Company. It's called an Arctic Fox axe puck. All right, it's very similar to the Hults Bruk, a little bit smaller in both dimensions. It's interesting. Also has a coarse and a fine side, and I don't know if you have to break in sharpening stones. I don't think that's how it works with the abrasives and the adhesive. I don't think that's, you have to break them in, but I did anyways to make this a fair comparison. Yesterday I took the Hults Bruk and took a really big Australian axe and just ground the hell out of it just to break open those abrasives and get it releasing and just make it more of a fair comparison with my Arctic Fox that I've used quite a bit. Our subject today is pretty interesting. This is a all original Hults Bruk 1.5 pound Montreal pattern hatchet from their Agdor line. And it's probably from the 60s or the 70s. You can tell with this epoxy permabond. They called it Agrofix. Back in the day, it was very popular. Everybody wanted this in an axe. Nobody wants it now, but they wanted it back then. Original haft, painted it up, shined it up. And using a draw file method, I put a nice, pretty flat grind on the edge here. It's plenty sharp, but as you can still see, the file marks are, deep, and I didn't do any kind of polishing on it. So you've got, on both bevels, you have the marks from the file. And what I thought would be a good test is to take the Arctic Fox, do one side, time it, check it out, see how quickly it cuts down on the coarse side to get rid of those file marks. And see what that finish looks like. Then use the fine side and get rid of all the coarse level abrasion and see what that looks like. Then do the same with the Hults Bruk. All right? About as good a test as I can conceive of to test these axe pucks. So this should be a good time. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is axe pucks, like, I think you can use them with an oil, but I never would. I always use them with water and never use oil. And that's mainly because, in the field you got water more available than oil unless you bring oil. Cuts just as good. I've seen no difference using different stones. And so you soak them in water a little bit and you can see little bubbles. See little bubbles as the water is saturating into particularly the fine side. It just soaks in a lot more. So we're gonna soak this for a few minutes. You can kind of see the bubbles there. All right, get some comparison to the porousness. So the Arctic Fox puck and the Hults Bruk puck have two different grit combinations. They're not the same, so they won't perform identically regardless, all right? The Arctic Fox is advertised at 220 grit on the coarse side, 400 grit on the fine side. That's a great combination, right? And the Hults Bruk puck is advertised at 180 on the coarse side, 600 on the fine side. So a little bit of difference there. But we'll see how that works out, and we'll see what the comparison is on cutting speed and on the quality of the finish. All right, we're ready. I got a towel here because this is actually pretty messy. If you've never done this, this is a messy process because the slurry just is this clay and water combination. It's very dirty and it gets all over. So I got a towel down here, and I'm gonna pick that up like this. We'll move the puck out of the way and move it over here. All right, I'm gonna take the Arctic Fox to the back side here. I'm going to start my timer. All right, I'm starting a timer. I'm going to take the coarse side, get a good position here. So this is the motion of the puck. It's just like any sharpening motion, really. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let the weight of the puck be the pressure. So I'm not really pushing down. I'm not really adding any pressure. And my grind here is pretty darn flat. All right, it's pretty much a flat grind, a Scandi grind. So I can just lay it on the surface, and I'm gonna let that guide my motion. Okay? Keep water going, and you can see there's water getting all over the place. We're already cutting really well. All right, we're gonna stick at this with my timer going, and we'll see just what we got. All right, so after 20 minutes, we're making real progress. Clearly, the file marks are shrinking and receding into the grind. And just remove all that metal off the tops of the ridges. Slowly bring it down. I find with the Arctic Fox that it does respond well to more pressure. All right, so if I press a little harder, you do get a harder cut, and it's good. That's good, makes sense. So I think we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, 30 minutes. I've now been doing this 30 minutes, and a minute or two doing this kind of motion and really smooth out what we got for an inspection. See what's going on here. Okay, nice. All right, there you go. You see that? Okay. We haven't completely made every file mark disappear, but now we have a really nice, much flatter, much more even satin finish. You know, and for 220 grit, that's not so bad. That's not so bad, right? Always hard to get the ends. That's just a hard thing, all right? And this is up on the relief bevel, so I don't care. Big ol' burr. Ah, big ol' burr. Just huge. We'll leave that for the Hults Bruk puck. All right, so there's 30 minutes. All right. Okay, good. Changed out the water. Got rid of that old slurry. And now we're going to use the fine side, and we're going to see where we can take it with the Arctic Fox. So you got time on your hands, this is a good time. All right, I've been going 15 minutes with the fine grit. And honestly, probably didn't make much more progress after, I don't know, 11 or 12 minutes. Yes, just a little over 10. It was about, this is where we're going. All right. So check that out. There's the 400 grit side of the Arctic Fox puck. Always tough to get the good light there, but you can kind of see the slurry on there? It's still on there. I haven't really cleaned it off, but a very nice, very smooth satin finish. All right, our work has paid off. And clearly, you know, the hard work is really in the coarse grits. The coarse grit's where you do your hard work, all right? Don't move on from the coarse grit until you're really satisfied with the shape of your bevel and kind of how you've dealt with the file marks. You know, if they're satisfying, then you can move on. If not, they'll shine through on all the grits above. But that's a pretty good finish. I like that. All right, now let's try out the Hults Bruk puck. Same process, stick it in the water. Give it a couple minutes to saturate the stone. Lots of little bubbles. Okay, so same test. Coarse side first. There's no substitute for patience with grinding by hand, so here we go. So I've stopped the watch and we're at 20 minutes. And it's, I think that, you know, that lower grit, that 180, that's getting ahead. It is definitely at this point, we're ahead of the other stone. The middle's quite smooth. And I'm gonna do some more on the ends here. But yeah, I think there's a lead in grinding speed, I think, right now. Let's see. So I hope I took good pictures when we were done with the coarse side on the other stone. I hope so. So here we are at 25 minutes. And yeah, I think we've got a lot farther in a little bit less time. So, you know, and I got 5 minutes to just work on one end that was particularly troublesome, and really got a good sweep in there. So that's a nice cutting puck. Okay, so on to the fine. All right. Been at this a while. You know, it just takes a long time to grind metal by hand. That just does. So, wow. So, can you see the slurry? That is a lot of slurry. That is a very rich slurry, kind of right out of the gate. And that's what I noticed yesterday. This thing really refreshes, you know, quickly. That's a lot of stuff coming up. So I'm not using very much pressure at all. Pretty light pressure, just to use, I guess, you know, my idea is maybe that thick layer slurry now, just, you know, let it do its thing without putting a lot of pressure on it, like you might with a coarse stone. So yeah, that's nice. All right, 7 minutes. I want to check it. I want to check it. It's 7 minutes. Stop the clock. Man, really thick slurry. Okay. All right, well, we can compare right now the two sides. Yeah. So it's a higher grit. It's a 600 grit. And so the finish is a lot more, you know, a cloudy satin finish. And the 400, you know, has more streaks in it, I guess. You know, it's a lower grit. So it's nice and got some mirrory reflections in it, and the 600 is a lot more smooth. Interesting. But wouldn't get much more out of it to keep going. I just don't think I would. So, okay, so off camera I spent about 90 seconds basically stropping with the 600 grit side of the HP puck. That's just where you really, really lightly at the very edge try to get that burr off, all right, without using a strop or anything like that. And so I think it cuts pretty good. I am impressed. Not bad for a puck. Okay, pretty good cutter. All right. So I hope you found that test interesting. I did. But I wanted to add some final thoughts as a perspective on the results we just saw. So clearly, the Hults Bruk puck is a great, high-quality puck. It really is. I love this finger groove here and the larger size of the puck. It made grinding pleasant. It felt really natural, and I could get very precise, you know, with where I wanted to grind. And as you saw, the stone did grind quicker than the Arctic Fox. Okay, I think the lower grit on the coarse side is a little bit of a benefit. Okay, at the fine grit though, I gotta say is a very, very soft sharpening stone. This is very soft, which means it cuts super quick with a really thick, rich slurry. That was a lot of fun. That was very effective, but it's going to wear out a lot faster than a harder stone. It will wear out. In fact, I can feel, even in the stone after the 2 axes I've ground a lot with, I can feel the wear on the stone, and that's not the case with the Arctic Fox. So the retail price on the Arctic Fox is $17.50. That's $17.50 for that stone, and the retail price for the Hults Bruk puck is $44. But you get a really sweet carrying case along with it. So a very high performing puck at a premium price. Pretty cool. Glad I got one. All right. Hope you learned something. Thank you very much for watching.